The oldest law of the empire had already written
With this
her fate.
hand,
She was sentenced
I join
to
my
marry a
life
human.
to yours,
This
my
was
love.
not a love story, it was a punishment, until a single touch fractured everything that had never been questioned. The law arrived before breakfast, which felt deliberate and therefore rude. The princess was still halfway through arguing with her wrist console about why it should not, under any circumstances, recommend fermented starfruit as a morning beverage, when the console cleared its throat in that smug, synthetic way reserved for bad news. By decree of the Continuity Statute, Article 9, subsection. Pause, she said. I haven't had caffeine. The console paused. It always did. The Empire's most ancient laws could bend around diplomacy, war, and planetary extinction, but never around the princess's morning temper. That was not written anywhere, but everyone knew it. When the console resumed, it did so louder, as if volume could substitute for sympathy. She listened with her long ears angled back, a posture that in her culture signaled irritation, skepticism, and a mild desire to throw someone out an airlock. By the time the word marriage appeared, she was already standing. No, she said to the empty room. The law, tragically, did not care. She paced. The palace floor adjusted its temperature under her feet, trying to be comforting. She ignored it. Marriage was a political tool, she knew that. Everyone did. But this was a sentence. The statute was old, older than the Empire's current borders, older than half the stars now charted. In rare cases, when balance demanded it, royal blood could be bound to an external species. Rare meant humiliating. Rare meant people whispered. Human, the console said. She stopped pacing. Human, she repeated, tasting the word like it might be expired. She had met humans, loud ones, earnest ones. One had once tried to shake her hand for a full 30 seconds while maintaining eye contact that suggested either confidence or a neurological issue. She suspected both. Her ears twitched. On what grounds? Genetic diversity, symbolic unity, trade corridor stability, the console replied cheerfully. Also, the algorithm says it is romantic. She stared. Turn off the algorithm. I can't, it has tenure. She laughed despite herself, a sharp sound that surprised even her. Then the laughter faded, leaving something colder behind. This wasn't romance. This was law pretending to be destiny. She was a princess of a species that valued control, composure, and the quiet dignity of restraint. Being ordered to marry someone she had never chosen, someone whose species thought socks with sandals were acceptable, felt like mockery. The human arrived 3 days later, escorted by diplomats and a hovering translation field that hummed like it was nervous. She did not greet him personally. That was a privilege, and she was not in a generous mood. When they finally met, it was in a chamber designed for neutrality. No banners, no symbols, no advantage. The human stood when she entered, which was correct, then sat when she gestured, which was also correct, then smiled in a way that suggested he was aware he was doing everything wrong anyway. You're taller than the files said, he offered, her ears angled forward. You read the files. I skimmed. I got distracted by a footnote about your legal system having more appendices than most novels. That was humor, she said flatly. Good, he said. I was worried it was a threat. She studied him. He did not bow deeply enough. He did not avert his gaze quickly enough. He did not seem afraid enough. Instead, he looked curious. Tired, maybe, but not resentful. That annoyed her more than fear would have. You understand this is not a choice, she said. Sure, he replied. Most of the important things aren't. Gravity, taxes, apparently you. Despite herself, her mouth twitched. She hid it by turning away. This union exists to satisfy law, not comfort. That's fine, he said. I'm terrible at comfort. I once tried to console a friend and accidentally explained orbital decay. Her ears flicked. That was unfortunate timing. And yet, as the days unfolded, protocols wrapped around them like polite chains. Assessments, interviews, neural scans administered by machines that spoke too kindly about intimacy. She treated it all like a performance she intended to fail with elegance. He treated it like a puzzle he didn't mind losing. During one session, a resonance chair malfunctioned and attempted to play ceremonial music from 3 different planets at once. The results sounded like a war crime. He laughed. She did not, but she did not leave either. "You don't have to pretend this is acceptable," she told him later, irritation leaking through her control. "I'm not pretending," he said. "I just figure if the universe is going to be absurd, I might as well cooperate." She considered that in silence. When the mandated touch finally came, it was supposed to be brief. A hand to a wrist, skin to skin, sensors active. She braced herself, expecting revulsion or nothing at all. Instead, there was a pause in her thoughts, like the universe inhaling. Something aligned. She pulled back instantly, heart racing, ears burning. The machines chirped in confusion. "What was that?" she demanded. He looked just as startled. "If this is where I apologize, I genuinely don't know for what." The law did not explain sensations. It did not account for recognition. It certainly did not warn her that one touch could make the sentence feel less like punishment and more like a question she had never been allowed to ask. She turned away before anyone could read her face. For the first time since the decree arrived, the future did not feel fixed. It felt unstable, and that, terrifyingly, made her curious. The palace reacted to instability the way all ancient systems did, by scheduling meetings. After the incident with the resonance sensors, her calendar filled itself with polite urgency, each appointment wrapped in language that suggested choice while quietly eliminating it. She attended them all with the calm of someone who had decided that if the universe insisted on being ridiculous, she would at least look dignified while enduring it. The human was there for most of them. Sometimes physically, sometimes as a glowing projection that flickered whenever he gestured too much, which was often. He talked with his hands like they were trying to escape. She found herself watching them despite her better judgment. The scientific council convened to discuss anomalous empathic feedback. That was the phrase they used, spoken reverently, as if naming it carefully might prevent it from happening again. She sat straight-backed, ears neutral, while diagrams bloomed in the air between them, colorful representations of neural fields overlapping in ways that made several scientists clear their throats. "This level of synchronization," one of them said, "is statistically improbable." "I'm very good at improbability," the human offered. "I once survived a shuttle crash caused by a sandwich." No one laughed. He sighed. It was a structurally unsound sandwich. She felt the corner of her mouth lift before she caught it. Annoyed, she folded her hands together, then immediately unfolded them when she realized what that reminded her of. They ordered a repeat test. She objected, of course. Calmly, eloquently, with a list of reasons that would have impressed a courtroom. The law listened, processed her objections, and then scheduled the test anyway. She considered screaming, but screaming had never impressed anyone important. The chamber this time was smaller, more controlled. The machines hummed softly, as if trying not to startle them. He stood across from her, posture uncertain but expression open, like someone bracing for weather rather than judgment. "If this goes wrong," he said quietly, "I want you to know I didn't mean to cause an interstellar incident." She tilted her head. "Your confidence is reassuring." They positioned themselves as instructed, hands hovering, not touching. The space between them felt charged, like a held breath. She told herself this was chemical, electrical, explainable. She had spent her entire life trusting explanations. "On 3, the machine said. 1. She inhaled. 2. Her ears flicked back, betraying nerves she refused to acknowledge. 3. Their hands met. It was not dramatic. No flashes, no visions, just warmth, spreading in a way that ignored anatomy. She felt impressions rather than thoughts. Patience worn thin but not broken, humor used like armor, a deep, stubborn refusal to be small even when the universe insisted. She sensed his awareness of her in return, not as a symbol, not as a sentence, but as a presence sharp with restraint and aching with unasked questions. They broke apart at the same time. The machine emitted a noise that suggested it was rethinking several academic papers. "That," the lead scientist said slowly, "should not have happened." "Good," the human replied. "I was worried it was normal." After that, things changed in small, irritating ways. She noticed him before she meant to. His voice in a room registered faster than others. Her irritation with him became more specific, more personal, which was deeply unfair. He, meanwhile, developed an alarming tendency to anticipate her reactions, stepping aside before she turned, offering comments that cut tension before it hardened. During a mandated walk through the arboretum, an environment carefully calibrated to appeal to both species, he gestured at a glowing plant. "Does this one bite?" "Only if insulted." "Ah," he said, "so it's like your legal system." She stopped walking, looked at him. He waited, braced for consequences, then she laughed. It escaped her, bright and sudden, echoing off the glass ceiling. He blinked, stunned, then smiled like someone who had just discovered gravity could be negotiated. "I will deny this if asked," she warned. "Of course," he said. "I will tell historians it was a dignified chuckle." The Empire watched them. She could feel it, the subtle recalibration of expectations, the way officials leaned in when they spoke together. Tradition demanded distance. The law demanded compliance. And yet, something in the air had shifted, like a variable nudged out of alignment. One evening, as artificial stars dimmed to simulate night, she found herself sitting across from him without an agenda between them. No machines. No observers, just two beings occupying the same silence. "You don't look like someone serving a sentence," he said eventually. She considered that. "Appearances are deceptive." "I was hoping you'd say that," he replied. "It's very on brand for mysterious royalty." She studied him, this human who had walked into her life as an obligation and stubbornly refused to remain one. "You are not what I expected," she admitted. He smiled softly. "You should see my resume." The law had intended to bind her. Instead, it had introduced her to uncertainty. And uncertainty, she was discovering, could be far more dangerous than rebellion. The law prepared for culmination the way it prepared for everything else, with ceremony, redundancy, and an alarming number of backup plans. The palace shifted into a heightened state of order, corridors reconfiguring themselves to accommodate delegations, drones polishing surfaces that were already immaculate, and legal AIs rehearsing announcements in tones calibrated to inspire awe rather than panic. The Empire loved endings, especially ones it could predict. She woke before the artificial dawn, ears tingling with the sensation that something important had already begun without her consent. For a moment, she lay still, staring at the ceiling as constellations drifted across it, then exhaled slowly. Once, the thought of this day would have filled her with cold fury. Now it filled her with something more complex and far more inconvenient. Choice. The human was waiting when she arrived at the antechamber, hands clasped behind his back, posture trying very hard to be respectful and failing in a way that had become familiar. He glanced up when she entered and smiled, smaller than usual, like someone aware that humor might be fragile today. "Big day," he said. "Yes," she replied. "The law intends to finalize my future." Rude of it not to ask first. She almost smiled. Almost. They stood there, side by side, not touching. The space between them felt deliberate, charged with all the moments they had not named. She remembered the princess she had been at the beginning of this process, controlled, distant, certain that dignity meant isolation. She was still dignified. She was no longer isolated. The difference unsettled the law in ways it could not quantify. Inside the chamber, the council extracted itself from conversation and turned as one. Light refracted through holographic sigils representing treaties, bloodlines, probabilities. The ancient statute hovered above them all, its language rendered in shimmering script that had not changed in thousands of cycles. "Proceed," the law intoned, voice layered, timeless. The ritual began, words spoken, acknowledgments made. The human answered when prompted, voice steady, humor restrained but not extinguished. She answered too, feeling the weight of tradition settle around her shoulders like a mantle she had worn all her life without questioning who had woven it. Then came the final clause, the one no one talked about, the one invoked so rarely it was often forgotten. Mutual consent verification. The chamber quieted. The law hesitated, not because it doubted, but because it recalculated. The sensors activated, scanning neural patterns, empathic fields, that strange alignment they had documented and quietly argued over for weeks. Consent must be freely given, the law said, without coercion, without override. She stepped forward before anyone could intervene. Her ears angled forward, not in challenge but in attention. Define freely. A ripple passed through the council. The law processed. Freely, it replied, is choice made with understanding. She turned to the human. He met her gaze without flinching. No expectation, no demand, just presence. This began as a sentence, she said, her voice carrying easily in the chamber. I believed my role was obedience. I believed dignity required silence. She paused, feeling the truth of what came next settle into place. I was wrong. The law shifted, sigils flickering. Clarify. I am clarifying, she said mildly. For myself. She took his hand. This time the touch did not surprise her. It grounded her. She felt his quiet steadiness, his humor waiting in reserve like a tool he would use only if needed, his respect for her choice regardless of outcome. I choose, she said. The law absorbed that word like a star collapsing inward. The sensors chimed, not in alarm but in confirmation. Consent verified, the law announced. Union valid. For a moment, nothing happened. The Empire, it turned out, was not very good at processing outcomes that arrived honestly rather than efficiently. Then the chamber exhaled. Later, after the ceremonies had concluded, after the officials had dispersed, after the drones had finally stopped trying to reposition themselves for better angles, she found herself standing on a balcony overlooking the city. It pulsed with life, ships threading between towers, humans and aliens moving together in ways that would once have seemed improbable. He joined her, leaning on the railing. So, he said, Princess who rewrote ancient law. How does it feel? She considered. Inconvenient, she said. Liberating, terrifying. Good, he replied. I was worried it would be boring. She laughed then, freely, ears lifting with the sound. The law still existed. Tradition still mattered. But somewhere along the way, she had learned that duty did not have to erase desire, and that connection could be an act of quiet defiance. She had not lost herself. She had found a way to choose who she was within the rules meant to define her. Below them, the city continued, indifferent and alive. For the first time,